Today we're going to cycle this tank. What's going on, guys? Devin from ReefDudes. Now I have all my tank moved over. Everything's moved from the old tank to the new tank, well, at least for the rock and some of the corals on it. And before I add the fish, I want to make sure the tank is fully cycled. Now, if you're setting up a brand new tank, it takes a little bit longer generally to do a cycle. If you're moving stuff with live established rock and bacteria on it, it's going to be a mini cycle. Now, to prevent any issues with the mini cycle, I'm going to be using what's called Fritz Turbo Start. Now, this is Turbostart 900, and this stuff is insanely concentrated good nitrifying bacteria. If we were doing a brand new tank from start, you would have to add some kind of ammonia source. Ideally, want to introduce bacteria, and it could take 3 or 4 weeks to get everything established. It could be up to 6 weeks. However, if you use something like this, you can have your tank cycled in a few days. You can get your first fish in there within a couple days. Now, I'm going to add this to the tank, and I'm going to let I just added sand, so it's super cloudy right now. So once it starts to clear up, I'm going to add some more, and then we'll add some more one more time before we add the fish into the tank. So the old school way of cycling a tank, you would use something like just feeding fish food and kind of phantom feeding the tank, and you'd let that stuff break down, turn to ammonia, which turn to nitrite and nitrate. Now what you're doing is building up a colony of bacteria that does each step of those processes for you. By adding something like Fritz Turbo Start, you're introducing that bacteria right off the bat. So you don't have to wait for it to build up on its own to do it. You're literally just throwing it all in there and letting it establish itself all throughout the tank. And that happens very rapidly. So this is a really great way if you want to, start that tank within a couple days and not wait weeks and weeks and weeks. Now, since I'm moving a tank, this is going to help me prevent any of that mini cycle that's going to happen. I just moved over from my 100 to my 160 gallon tank. I am using a chunk of the live rock. I did, however, use all brand new sand, and I'm using some new rock mixed in. So by adding this in, it's going to go a long way in preventing, make sure there's no cycles, and make sure it's a healthy environment to move my new fish into. So we got a chunk of our aquascape done. A lot of the rock, there's old rock and new rock into the new tank. So now we're going to check the salinity and temperature, make sure they match on both tanks. So this guy's sitting at 1.026, and temperature-wise, 25.7. And if we check the old tank, we're at 25.6, 25.8, and salinity is 1.027 or 36 ppt. So a tad more salinity, probably just from the evaporation from the past day or two. So I moved about 80% of my old rock over, as well as a few chunks of marine pure. I had a bunch of little balls that are in the new sump. And I used the rest of it, I kind of filled in with new Marco rock. So I use that to build out a few ledges and a few different add-ons to the tank. So we know our salinity is more or less matched up. Our temperature is pretty darn close. So next is just going to be test the basics. I know most of you guys haven't used the test kits, ammonia, nitrite, nitrate, since you first set up a tank. So they're still good to have around, especially if you're transferring a tank. So yesterday we dumped in a ton of the Fritz Turbo Start, and that's going to do a huge leap in the bacteria population of the tank. It's going to help seed all the new sand, the new rock I added, and add new strains to the existing bacteria on the live rock, which should hopefully have the tank more or less cycled by now. But just to be safe, we're going to do our basic testing, test ammonia, nitrite, nitrate, and if everything looks good, then we'll move our fish into the new tank. Okay, shake for 10 seconds. Shake it, shake it. You can shake it. Alexa, set a timer for 15 minutes. Now we sit back, make a coffee, and wait. Okay, so we have 0 nitrite. Nitrate is about 5. And ammonia is 0. So I think we are good to go. So the Turbostart did a great job of cycling this tank, or getting rid of any mini cycles I may have had with it. I'm going to dump a little bit more in just because it's pretty hard to overdose this stuff. And now we should be safe to catch our fish and add them to the tank.